In this video, I talked to Jesse Lakes from Genius Link about running tests with affiliate links, which is pretty cool. So we go through two different sorts of tests that he's done a case study on. Very good blog post about it as well. So I'll put a link to that in case you get into the weeds and you want to see exactly how he implements one of these tests. Now, the cool thing is Jesse has basically opened the doors. He said that he's willing to run some essentially conversion rate optimization or CRO if you have some experiments that you want to run. The cool thing with Genius Link, that's his company, is he has the technology to run these tests and they have the experience because they've done lots of tests before. So they know how to properly set them up, run the analytics, test and make sure it's working properly to actually get data. Now, the one little caveat is they want access to the data, right? So if you want to run an experiment, they want to know what the results were. So fairly straightforward. I would say a pretty good trade-off. And if you actually go and look, there are companies, agencies that will do CRO for you, but they are very expensive. Jesse is, like I said, opening the doors to the niche site project community. So if you have an idea, you should reach out. There's a contact form or a link to the contact form for Genius Link, and you can check it out. So without further ado, I'm going to send it over to the interview. Hey, what's going on? It's Doug Cunnington here from Niche Site Project, and we're recording The Doug Show. I have my good friend on here, Jesse Lakes. What's going on today?
It's just another beautiful day in sunny Seattle.
Fantastic. Good to see you. And it's been a little while. It's been quarantine time. So are you and the family and the company holding up pretty good socially, health wise, and all that?
Health-wise is the easy one. Socially, yeah, we're doing our 6 foot visits and so forth as allowed, as okay. We're doing well. It seems people are taking this extra time where they no longer have a commute to dive down and start some side projects, some side hustles. And it's been really awesome to see that. And just the unique spot that we're at with Genius Link, it's been awesome to help out with that as well.
And for the folks that don't know anything about Genius Link or who you are, could you give the 90-second intro?
Sure. Yeah, we are a intelligent link management platform with a deep history in the world of affiliate. So our classic feature that most people know us of is taking an Amazon link and making sure that it works around the world. It uses all the different Amazon storefronts and all the different Amazon affiliate programs. But of course, that's just the tip of the iceberg these days.
Very cool. In fact, and if you want to mention Kit as well, I was actually on there putting together. A lot of people are asking, hey, what are you recording with for YouTube? What are you using for the podcast? So I finally was getting around to putting together my kit. So
Awesome.
what's Kit? Yeah.
Yeah, Kit.co is a platform that we acquired about a year ago that allows we call them creatives or creators, and it's really podcasters, bloggers, authors, etc. People that put products together to solve a problem for different scenarios. So for yourself, with the podcasting, but it's really just a great place for affiliates to list out certain products for a certain area and earn affiliate commissions. It takes advantage of the Genius Link platform, but also puts a pretty easy UI and presents it in a very clean way. So it's a really fun platform and works real well with Genius Link, which of course is why we bought it.
It's it was very slick, and I like how it integrates with like several different affiliate programs, like right from the dashboard, like no crazy configuration, no weird sort of interface that you have to figure out on your own. It just is all right there. So,
Cool.
okay, so we'll quickly transition into the topic of the day, which is running experiments and very specifically for affiliate links. So, you guys are in a perfect position to run such experiments. So in this particular case, what we're going to talk about today, two experiments that you went through, you have
Mhm.
results. We'll definitely share those. But the bigger thing I think is how to run an experiment, and people that maybe have some hypothesis that they want to test, how to do it without
Mhm.
going crazy and actually like getting results that you can rely on. So
Yeah.
we're going to get into all of that. And what were the couple tests that you were running?
Yeah, sure. So we did two different experiments with some clients. So the first one was around Nike's affiliate program. So Nike's a worldwide brand, just like Amazon is, and Nike also, like Amazon, has different storefronts in different parts of the world. How Nike differentiates from Amazon is that they have actually some basic geo-targeting built into the website. So if you land on Nike's UK site and they see you have coming from a US IP, they'll ask if you actually want to go to the Nike store in the US. So that user experience piece is a bit more taken care of than it is from Amazon. On the flip side, though, they have different affiliate programs for different stores, but they have it on different affiliate networks. Amazon at least keeps it a little bit simple, where Amazon.com has its own affiliate program. You have to sign up for that to get commissions on that store. Amazon.co.uk, etc. But Nike uses CJ in the US, and they use AWIN kind of everywhere else in the world. So you have a broken monetization story, but you have most of the pieces there for a UX story. And our hypothesis there was, instead of just using a single link to Nike, let's use a quote unquote intelligent link for Nike and make sure that people from different parts of the world are taken to the correct storefront using the correct affiliate tracking of information. And from my perspective, it was kind of a no-brainer, but again, I eat, breathe, sleep, this whole focus on making sure that mid body and long tail is taken care of. So just for the sake of argument, we connected with a partner, had a bunch of Nike links and ran an experiment, which we'll talk more about here in a minute. The other experiment that we had the pleasure of doing, and we've done many of these since, but connected with a YouTuber, a professional chef by the name of Justin Khanna. Justin has a YouTube channel that talks about a lot of different aspects of being a chef, but in particular, he recommends different gear, reviews different gear, and knives were one of the things that he reviewed. It's obviously an important piece of being a chef. So we were comparing does an Amazon link that goes directly to Amazon, how does that compare to the performance of a choice page? And a choice page is something that Genius Link's been experimenting with a lot recently, where you can promote a single product, but it's got multiple different buy buttons. So maybe Amazon is one, and Walmart, I think, was another. There was a couple other retailers I'm forgetting off the top of my head at the moment. But we wanted to see, does that direct go to Amazon every single time? Does that convert better? Is that worth more per click? Or actually introducing another click in the flow, but giving users a little bit of a chance to do some price comparison and really find the retailer that's perfect for them. So that was the second experiment. So two fairly different experiments, but they both, again, like as you said, revolved around an affiliate link and having this idea that maybe a geo-target link works better than not so much, or a non-geo-targeted link, or does a direct Amazon link work better or worse than a Amazon or a product recommended across the choice page. So I had hypotheses, I had guesses for both of those, but I didn't know the results. It was pretty interesting. We'll save that for a little bit later on. We'll dive through the details first, I'm sure.
A true podcaster, make them wait. So, well, for these two, I mean, I know you said you didn't know what was going to happen, but were you like, I'm pretty sure like these are going to be good tests to give us like better results?
Yeah, and that's, as a CEO, right? I always have a gut that I'm working off of, but my gut is not always correct. So making those data-driven decisions can be really helpful. And I think, just to take kind of a quick step here, or quick step back, as an affiliate marketer, especially in the early days, it's important to trust your gut. You don't have the time or the resources, the bandwidth to run these experiments. And I think it's important to note that experiments are super important to dive into, but it's when kind of your head and your gut start to diverge, right? Your gut says, do this, and your head says, hold on, maybe that's not exactly it. And when you kind of get to that, you're not sure, boom, it's time to run an experiment. Is your gut winning? Is your head winning? Where do you go?
Okay. As far as designing the experiment and like understanding the process, you've outlined it pretty well on a blog post, which we'll share for people's reference. But can you run through the 7 steps that you've listed here?
Sure. And so the 7 steps we have here are a pretty good baseline, but I want to be, the first disclaimer that I did not get a degree in a science-based education. I got a business degree, which, for those proper statisticians or those proper scientists out there, there may be little tweaks on these 7 steps. But in general, kind of the 7 steps, as we saw from our experiments and also from some of the other experiments we've seen from peers in the space and read about, it's really kind of start with defining your question, having that difference between your gut and your head. What is that? The next one is really just to kind of take some time. Sorry, is that dog Jack in the background? Is he? Yeah, you can see him there.
He's all good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the next kind of step is to plan your approach, right? So plan your approach is really just to take a moment and think about this experiment, right? What you've got your thesis, the hypothesis, how do you look at those two different pieces? Do you have a control and a test, or do you have a control and multiple different tests? It's a multivariate test. And just think about that and just start to brainstorm, to brain dump. What are the different pieces you want to look at? How would you define success? What factors can influence this in a negative or a positive way, et cetera. And once you have that plan, then it's time to actually start having some fun. And this is where, kind of the Genius Link side kicks in, and where I enjoy getting nerdy about it, because it's time to set up your links. When you start to set up your links, you've again, with a test, you have to have something to compare against something else, your control versus your test. So, getting that set up in a way that's smart, that you can then track the results to make sure that at the end of the experiment, the data that you have is clear and concise, and it's not just all jumbled together. Once you have your links set up, it's time to actually get those out and get some traffic on them to actually start running that experiment. So, publishing those links or updating the links you currently have. And once that's there, the next one is, kind of step 5 is one of the easiest, and that's you just have to wait. You need a critical mass of traffic to come through so you can really see, is one better than the other, or the same, so forth and so on. Once you've given it that time, and sometimes it's shorter than others just based off the traffic, based off the results, the difference between the two, et cetera, then it's time to really kind of dive in and look at those numbers. Was this better than this, or was this better than this? Do you trust these numbers? Are the numbers, are there things that you didn't think about when you first set them up that they're kind of looking a little funky that you maybe need to unpack a little bit? And then at the very end is you've got these results and you get to make the decision. Was my gut right? Was my head right? Or I don't know. And it's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, we need to go back to the drawing board and tweak this test or run it for a little bit longer, et cetera. So the 7 steps, but you may find that you need to iterate a few times before you kind of get to a point where you're totally comfortable. Or, you may find that this is a bit addictive and you keep iterating time and time and time again and continue to evolve and kind of tweak your links and your affiliate strategy until hopefully you're doing quite well.
Got it. When, in your observation, have you seen people make a couple very common mistakes when they're trying to run an experiment or they're thinking about running an experiment? I have a couple that I'll mention after you, so you can have the glory if you pick one of mine.
Yeah. So we're great at making mistakes, but we learn from our mistakes. And some of the biggest ones we've learned from is really just kind of figuring out a good, clean way to differentiate what is kind of your control versus your test versus kind of what was happening beforehand. Within the Genius Link platform, we have different, we call them groups, but they're essentially buckets. So a link that sits in this group can use this tracking information. A link that sits in this group can use this tracking information. So having that tracking information be different, but also then separating that from the existing data or from the account as a whole. It takes a lot of work to kind of set these up in an efficient way. So often you're not going to set up every single one of your links as a test. So just, I want to pull these ones aside. Okay, move them into a separate group. And I want to test these 2 pieces. Okay, that's another separate group. So that kind of granularity, so that at the very end, you have the fidelity that you need in the data to be able to make more concrete decisions. So we've screwed that up a couple times there. The other one is really just around the time period, understanding how much is enough time, getting excited, stopping the test, looking at the data. It's amazing results. And then you go to actually look at the statistical significance. Like, no, you don't have it. You got to hold on, Dragonfly. We need a little bit more time here. We need more data to come through to really see this is actually statistically significant, not just a fluke, not just, one lucky click that resulted in a big sale or whatever it may be, which can skew everything. So those are probably the 2 biggest ones. But I'm sure there's other mistakes that we've made over time. Oh, sure. I guess the third, is to isolate what you want to test. So I guess that's another important thing. Like for the Nike one, we looked at the top 10 countries. Nike has more than 10 different storefronts, but you kind of got to this point where it didn't make sense to figure out and build the links for storefronts 11 through 20, which were still getting traffic. So we said just the 10 countries, and then we have to isolate for those countries. With the choice page test, we were just looking at specifically at US-based traffic, so we had to isolate the international traffic from that. So that step of kind of isolation we skipped in the first round. Whoops.
Got it. And I think it's kind of similar to one of the ones you mentioned, but I think a lot of people end up doing the multivariate test, which is extremely hard to do.
Hmm.
It's been a long time since I've had any kind of science, anything, but I have an engineering degree. So it was in the science area, I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
And the multivariant sort of tests are, you have to have so much more data. And even then, you could be picking up artifacts from your sample set
Hmm.
in one observation. So we have this data, especially for the choice pages for a YouTuber, right?
Hmm.
So if it was traffic coming from a blog, a visitor coming from a blog, it could be different. Or if they're coming from Instagram, just because they're in a different mindset, different demographic, all that kind of stuff, which someone may look at the data here and just say like, oh, choice pages always win. I think they probably do, by the way, but you would have to make sure like the traffic is similar, and it could be totally different depending on, who that person is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're finding, with choice pages too, is that it seems to work better for higher priced items. For lower cost items, the extra click's not worth it. If you're looking at toothpaste, you're probably not going to price compare toothpaste. But as soon as you get to, $200 microphones or lighting equipment, then it starts to be worth your time. So we're learning little nuances there, just like you said. There's a lot going on. But to take a step back, you're absolutely right. The multivariate piece, you need enough traffic to go through every single one of those possible outcomes to really start to compare, and that's hard to do. You need thousands and thousands and thousands of clicks on a single link if you're setting it up that way, and that's not a lot of people have many thousands of clicks on just a single link in any short time frame. So I
Yeah.
completely hear you. This is probably getting a little too nerdy, but the other thing that is probably worth mentioning here is just that whole correlation and causation, right? That just because you see something happening doesn't mean that you impacted it because you did it that way. And that's a lesson that just because you put in a choice page doesn't mean that the choice page resulted in and was the reason that led to higher sales. There's some correlation there because you're seeing on the other side, but it isn't just because of that. It may have seasonality kicks in or some of these other factors kick in. Again, you're trying to isolate those as much as possible, but there are other things that can impact your test in weird ways and mess them up.
This stuff has to be repeatable,
Hmm.
and other people should be able to repeat your results with their same sort of test and that sort of thing. So, and that's like when it really proves like the data was good. This
Hmm.
approach is definitely better. We see it across the board, and removing any of the, maybe, like I said, artifacts that you didn't count on. So, okay,
Yeah, exactly.
awesome. Now, one part that we glossed over, which as I was looking at the blog post, I kind of went cross eyed. I didn't really know what was going on.
Of
And that is
course.
the setting up the links part.
Hmm.
So, can you tell us about how you needed to do this? Let's focus on the Nike one first, and then
Sure.
we'll talk about the choice page setup.
Yeah, so this is why I love this so much is that with these experiments, we get to use a lot of the different aspects that we've built into Genius Link over the years that we just kind of saw as separate features. So with the Nike one in particular, we had a couple different things that we need to achieve, right? We had our control, right, which was just a direct Nike link, and that control needed to be hit 50% of the time. So that part of the experiment was relatively easy. Inside of Genius Link, you have the opportunity to create a A/B split link, which just allows you to assign different percentage of traffic to different destinations. So we could say 50% of traffic goes to this control, and that control is just the standard direct to Amazon, or sorry, direct to Nike using Nike's affiliate program. But then we needed the thing that we're testing to do something different, right? And we needed to move some of that other traffic out. Again, we're only testing 10 countries in particular. So we now needed to nest a advanced link inside of the A/B link. So that 50% that goes to the control, that's simple. The 50% that goes to the test, well, that's the experiment, right? That's what we're really interested in. So we use the advanced link. We picked the 10 different countries. We found the 10 different destinations, and we put them in there. But we also said that, hey, for traffic that's coming from outside of these countries, we don't want that as part of the experiment. So you have one advanced link, you have that A/B split piece to do it, but get rid of the other stuff, we had to do another advanced link on top of it. So you have multiple layers to set this link up correctly. And that's really why, the step before, step two, plan your approach is why you really kind of need to sketch through this. There's no way I could have just sat down in front of the Genius Link dashboard and say, okay, boom, 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 here's my links, here's how they're configured. I had to, I think I used an outline for this to just say, for this one, tab it in, needs to go here for 50%. Okay, so tab it in. This is the two different destinations. Okay, go back and then just kind of use that outline format to visualize how I want that link to structure. In the other test, we used just a spreadsheet to kind of help say, okay, these are the different destinations. These are where it needs to group back into. Here's the link that it should belong to. These links should belong inside here, etc. But that's every experiment is going to be slightly different, but you're probably going to use, and again, this doesn't have to be Genius Link specific. It's just, ironically, our tool does this really well. But there's multiple other link management tools that do this whole split link or these advanced links where you can assign different countries. But just kind of taking the time to think through how those pieces fit together, playing with them a little bit, testing them, of course, and seeing it. But yeah, I don't blame you for going cross-eyed on that. It took time to figure out what the right path was forward, but that time was easier done in that plan your approach phase versus actually building the links, realizing you built it wrong, going back to the drawing board, building another one, testing it, figuring out it was wrong again, etc. So yeah, it's important you fully do your homework on the step before you move to the next one.
It makes sense. If you're building something, which you are when you're setting up the links, then you really need to understand how big, like, if you're building a house, like how big is the foundation? How tall
Right.
is this going to be? Like, what am I going to need in a day or two? Like, what sort of like two by fours or other lumber? I don't build
Doors? You need
stuff.
doors for a house? Oh, I
Yeah,
should have remembered to put those in.
exactly.
Windows too? Yeah.
All that stuff. Okay. And then once you were, I imagine as long as you plan ahead, the actual setup within a tool, whether it's Genius Link or something else, is probably not overly complicated. You just have to create the links and put in your inputs, and then you have your links that you could use, right?
Exactly. If you have it mapped out, it's just a matter of using the tool, being familiar with, okay, this is how you set up an A/B link, or here's how you nest one inside the other. Here's how you should organize it. Yeah. That's really easy. Again, if you spent the time kind of planning your approach, all the tools are pretty simplistic. But you probably spend three times as much. You put three times as much time into the setting up your links as you do of actually kind of building those links.
And then the choice pages, you just use the spreadsheet and again, straightforward to create those links
Mhm.
and nothing weird going on, right?
Shouldn't be. The first one's always going to be the hardest, but it gets way easier as you kind of iterate off of that, learn your process, learn your flow, learn what, does the spreadsheet approach or does the outline approach work better, and how to kind of tweak off of that.
Okay, gotcha. So once you have the link set up, you publish, you're good to go, and basically then
Publish and you test, right? The first thing, you should always, always, always test your link, or else that whole waiting period is worthless because you didn't get enough there. So yeah, publish, because you want to do kind of an end-to-end test, right? You want to make sure that it's working correctly on your website or in your social media channel, wherever you published it. It's working correctly inside of the link management tool, and it's also working correctly inside of the affiliate network and the reporting side there too. So you can publish it today, but it may take a day or so for AWin or CJ or Amazon to come back and show you, okay, you got actual data coming through on that tracking ID. Okay, I see the clicks happening here inside the link management tool. When I clicked it, it was going to one of the different destinations. So yeah, I mentioned just, step four is purely publish, but it really should be publish and test should be just as emphasized, because it's a huge part. It sucks to wait 6 weeks and then realize that you messed up on one simple thing that's just going to completely screw up your results.
and when you test, I imagine you click through to see a click is going through, but for actual sales, as we're affiliates, we shouldn't be like purchasing on our affiliate link. That's not going to show up. It's violating terms of
Mhm.
service and all that. So I take it you wait until actual traffic passes through the test, and then you'll see that, like you said, after a day or two.
Yeah, that's so you're absolutely right. Don't buy products from your Amazon affiliate links, because that can get you in trouble. But if you're seeing clicks being recorded from that tracking ID, it's very, there's very few things that would keep you from actually seeing sales. So there's often, Amazon's great because it's such a short lag. With some of these other affiliate networks, it can be 72-hour lag between a click and a sale, or even longer depending on what that cookie window is. But clicks are often reported fairly quickly in the affiliate networks. So if you're seeing the clicks show up, then you're probably in a good spot. You don't necessarily have to wait for a sale. But yeah, after you publish, it may take 24 hours before you're comfortable checking that mark and moving on to the next step of waiting.
And then how long do you wait?
Depends. And this is the hard question, right? So what we found is what we typically aim for is having at least 1,000 clicks per test per control, and that 1,000 clicks is just a general benchmark. So if there's a crazy difference between your test and control, you don't need as many clicks. But if it's only a 0.5% change, you're going to need a whole lot more, and that goes back to this whole statistical significance thing. So big difference, less traffic, less time necessary to see if there's results. If it's a small difference between the red button versus the green button, if it's such a small nuanced thing, you're going to need a lot of volume to come through before you're actually comfortable that it's not just a little fluke for one reason or the other. So the time and the traffic are the two factors there, right? For one client, we can wait a week because they're driving more traffic through the links. A smaller client, it may take 6 weeks or 2 months to actually get the traffic necessary through the links to really kind of get to a point where we think it's good. So yeah, general rule of thumb again is we like to see about 1,000 clicks per destination to ensure that we're in at least in the right place. But it could be less than that as well, or it could be significantly more.
For these two tests, how many links did you create and how did you, I guess, set it up? I guess going back,
Sure.
because I'm just curious, you could potentially just in my head thinking about it for the YouTuber, you could basically go to a super high traffic video that gives you a lot of clicks, and then
Hmm.
that probably it's going to work across the board, but not
Hmm.
necessarily, but pretty safe, and then just run it on that one video through the one link. Or yeah, how'd you set it up?
Yeah. So with the choice page, it was one link that we set up the test for. With the Nike link or the Nike test, it was 5 different links that we set up for. And since we've published this, we've completed about another 10 different tests on choice pages. We want to be absolutely sure that these choice pages are the cat's pajamas. So we continue to run different tests on those. And we're actually finding that instead of one link at a time, we're typically picking a client's their 5 to 10 best links, top performing links, and we'll set those up, move those into separate groups. When I first did the choice page testing, that was a lot of administrative overhead. When doing the links as a whole, it makes it a lot easier to get more traffic, et cetera. So for the initial choice page test, the one that's mentioned in this blog, it was just a single link that we used. But we found as we continue to run more and more of these tests that actually having 5 to 10 of your top links or highest traffic links and running those tests together is giving more results or better results sooner. And by better results, I just mean that we're getting that kind of 1,000 clicks earlier, so we can kind of make the tweaks off of that and go from there.
Gotcha. Okay. And then we're dipping into analysis a little bit here already. And is there anything sort of unusual that you have to be aware of, or is it pretty clear as long as you see like, oh, the control is doing much better or much worse? Is there any sort of trick to review the data?
I think the trick is not taking shortcuts, but actually grabbing the data, putting it there, looking at it, slicing and dicing a few different ways. Typically when you're kind of planning your approach, you'll define what success is, and we typically use earnings per click. EPC is a great. It's my favorite affiliate metric. Everyone has their own, but EPC seems to normalize for sales, normalizes for clicks. Those are the two most important pieces. So having that EPC value was kind of how we gauge success. But we also looked at conversion rates. We also saw with the choice pages in particular that it's really easy to get the clicks coming out of the choice pages, but that's not a fair apples to apples comparison. It needs to be clicks into the choice page versus clicks directly to Amazon. So we had to take a moment to take a step back and look at, we call those impressions inside of Genius Link. So the impressions to a choice page versus the clicks to Amazon. So by they're the same thing, but because we're calling different, it took a little bit of a mental somersaults to kind of get that set up. So grab the data, look at the data, crunch the data a couple different ways, look for mistakes, think about it, peer review if that's available to you to really kind of dive in. But yeah, that analyze step is we skim over that. It's easier once you've done the first experiment because you know what to look for and what data specifically to grab. But yeah, the first couple times we did this, we grabbed a lot of different data and looked at it in a lot of different ways before we figured out, okay, this tells the story as accurately as possible with the least amount of additional overhead to grab the pieces. We will do this for later iterations on it.
Got it. Anything else with setting up, running the experiment before you reveal the results?
So realize you're probably going to screw it up the first time and just be okay with that. As affiliate marketers, we're kind of used to that, right? It's an iterative process. We're always kind of building upon it. But doing it, running through it, you're going to learn so much from the first couple experiments. Yeah, we've done dozens and dozens of experiments now, which is why I felt comfortable to finally write the blog. Is that we've made a lot of mistakes. We kind of figured out how to get the different pieces, and hopefully you don't have to make nearly as many mistakes. And I would be delighted to congratulate you for getting it right the first time. And yeah, please let us know if you do. But yeah, just be prepared to shoot, I can't actually compare this with this, or yeah, I didn't factor this out, and realizing that to get going. But yeah, the analyze stage will help you there. But then yeah, kind of on the reveal, double check your work because nothing's more embarrassing than letting someone know these numbers and then realizing that you were wrong, which is doing that publicly. It's good to do that, again, within your peer group, close friend. Hey, check my math. What am I seeing here? What's wrong? That can be super helpful.
Definitely. And I'll second that. Hey, you may make a mistake with the setup. And the other part is most of the tests that I see are failures, right? Like it's barely a difference, if anything, and it's not even within I guess, the significant area where you can actually say we should change this. So it's like half a
Mm-hmm.
percent, and it could be wrong because you don't know how clean the data is coming in. There's some mistakes along the way. And yeah, most of I have a friend who's just been running a bunch of tests, and basically he feels like he's wasted a few weeks because now he knows he was doing things pretty good before, which
And
is good.
exactly. I don't think calling it failure is not, I think, the right. What was it? Thomas Edison failed 1,000 times before he made a light bulb. And it's you figure out what doesn't work. You figure out that actually your gut had it right 90% of the time. But if you can't justify that, your head's not going to stop nagging you and letting you know that your gut was right. So it's okay to fail. It's okay to come with an inconclusive result. It's one more thing you can check off to move forward. It's you don't figure out how to make a light bulb the first time through. You don't figure out how to double your commissions the first time through. It takes time and effort and tweaking to do exactly that.
So what were the results?
So the choice page, this initial results were really interesting. We found that that direct to Amazon link resulted in EPC of about a little over 8 cents per click. On the flip side, we saw that with the choice page, with the 4 different options, we were getting closer to 18 cents per click. So there was actually about 115% improvement. And that's, again, we had to do the experiment a couple times to get everything cleared out, but we're pretty comfortable with those results there. So it seems that a choice page, at least for promoting high-end knives via a YouTube channel for cooking, this choice page is a good option. Taking a look at the Nike one, I have to find that data off the top of my head. It was
Oh yeah. So the EPC, it was 20 cents for the control and 31 cents for the test, which is 54.84% higher.
that sounds about right. So turns out that taking care of at least the top 10 countries in your Nike links can result in a decent bump in your EPC.
Pretty amazing. And one thing I'm curious, especially because I'm more familiar with the choice pages and just having more options, and I'm curious whether having fewer or more choices helps. So whether you have Walmart versus Amazon versus 3 other vendors out there that are selling. And I have a feeling, because I usually try and limit choices. So people are
Hmm.
like, I'm just going to check two. And
Hmm.
then they don't get burnt out like checking all these different e-commerce
It's the paradox
sites.
of choice, right? You give them
Yep.
too many options, they get stuck.
And inevitably those those kind of sites, they'll have the pop-up say 15%, and like all of a sudden like someone's gotten completely off the rails there because they've clicked around too much. So yeah,
Hmm.
just curious, do you happen to remember how many different choices were on the page?
So with the knife one, it was four. With some of the other testing we've done, we stick to two. That's a lot of it is around camera gear, and Amazon and BH are kind of two of the biggest names in the space. But you know what? That's a perfect thing to run an experiment for. Is does yeah, and this might actually be more of a setup for a multivariate where a choice page with one or sorry two options, three options, four options. Which of those compare best? But yeah, the product category, the price, the call to action, the number of options, all those things are factors in these experiments. So again, I think we did a pretty good job getting rid of the noise and really kind of focusing on, but there's still other things that can lead to those changes. And we talked about kind of that iterative cycle. Now that we know that choice pages perform better than a direct to Amazon link, well, let's try a slightly different choice page, or let's try one three different ways with Amazon link, choice page as it was, and choice page with a slightly different number or whatever, changing one variable at a time. We have to drive 50% more traffic now so that each of those get the traffic that they need to be statistically significant, as we talked about before, because those multivariates become heavier and heavier burdens to carry with having enough traffic to deal through. But now that you kind of have that stepping stone, that foundation of how to build and test and experiment fully, then you can kind of level up and go from there.
Very cool. Any other experiments on the horizon that you can tell us that you're doing right now?
So last summer, I ran a handful of different choice page tests, and this Justin Connors was one of them. Earlier this year, we a guy from our team with taking this one step further. So he's run, I think, nearly a dozen different tests now with a variety of different sized YouTubers, looking again mostly focused on camera gear. And so far, we found pretty consistent results, which has been awesome. Back to you were saying, just that whole repeatability. So the next step is to, the three things we talked about before, the number of options, the category, and kind of the call to action, starting to experiment off of that. And that's going to be harder, right? Because it's not as drastic as a difference. Does find the best deal below versus get it now? Do those call to actions matter much? Does two retailers versus three retailers really matter, or is it really two versus five that you're going to see the difference? So yeah, now that we've now that we've painted ourselves into this kind of corner, it's time for us to level up as well and really kind of take a step further. But thankfully, we've been doing a really good job taking notes, figuring out what does and doesn't work, learning from our mistakes, that we're getting much more efficient about this. But just to kind of flip that around, yourself, Doug, or someone in your audience, if you have a great idea about an affiliate experiment you want to run, I want to learn. I want to use this as an opportunity. So I'm willing to sponsor your experiment if you'll share the data with us. So if you have an experiment you want to run, I'm happy to open you up with the Genius Link platform to work through these 7 steps with you, give you the tools and kind of be that peer for you, just in exchange for teaching me, teach our team what does and doesn't work in the affiliate space. I think that we have an opportunity for all of us to level up. It's not a zero-sum game. We can all help each other, and I think running some scientific experiments and sharing those results across the community could be a good thing for everyone. So I'd like to help do exactly that.
Perfect. Well, and we'll get your, the contact info, the area, the way you want people to contact you, and maybe some criteria we could follow up afterwards to make sure that, you're not going to have to let a test run for a year and a half. Maybe we can get it a little faster. So we'll make sure we have the right people to run experiments with Genius Link. So very cool. Any other parting thoughts here?
Don't be afraid. Just dive in. It took us a long time to dive into this because we were scared. There was a lot of areas we didn't know. So yeah, it's not as scary as it looks, and just be prepared to fail the first time through. But it's not a failure. You're learning what doesn't work so that you can make it better the second time through.
Very cool. All right. Thanks, Jesse. Really appreciate it. And we'll get all your links up, and you're over at Genius Link, and we'll make sure people can find you in the blog and everything out there.
Thank you, Doug. Always a pleasure.
Thanks again to Jesse, and be sure to reach out to Genius Link and the crew over there if you do have some hypothesis that you want to test out. I think it'll be awesome. I didn't even mention it before, but I'm Doug Cunnington. So if you stuck around for this long, either you know who I am or you just like the content. And if you like the content, you should subscribe to the channel. I do a lot of basically success stories for side hustlers, affiliate marketers, and folks that are into SEO. So definitely check that stuff out. And I think that's it for now. So we'll catch you on the next episode, and we'll see you around YouTube.